Welcome to Invisible M's podcast. Here, we talk about unseen forces that shape our lives, from midlife pivots and unexpected relationships to quiet personal awakenings. This is where self-awareness begins. Real stories, raw truths. You are not alone. This is a conversation for anyone who is almost reaching the end of December 2025 and wonder what Christmas really means. Not the commercial sparkle, not the social obligation, but the quiet moments in between. We live in a culture that insists Christmas must be loud, cheerful, full, and complete with festive pictures, gatherings, and celebrations. Yet beneath all of that noise, there is another experience that many of us carry quietly. The sense of stillness, of waiting, of meaning that is not loud or obvious. This is a conversation about those quiet moments and about understanding that meaning is often found in the subtle spaces between expectation and experience. As this Christmas season unfolds in 2025, there's a growing awareness that Christmas is not the same for everyone. In the United States, a recent survey suggests that nearly 14 million people are expecting to wake up alone on Christmas morning without the company of a family or close friends, highlighting what researchers describe as a silent epidemic of holiday isolation. For those millions, the day framed around family, shared meals, and connection instead becomes a mirror of everything they feel they are missing, everything they long for or long to understand about themselves. The stark contrast beneath cultural narrative and lived experience creates a powerful emotional landscape, according to My Chest Co. Now, these numbers are not isolated, if you ask me. Human beings are social by nature, and social scientists explain that loneliness at Christmas is often a response to a mismatch between our internal emotional world and the cultural messaging that insists we must feel celebratory this time of the year. Now, there is a pressure to be happy, to post smiling pictures, to attend every gathering. Yet, when we sit with ourselves in that quiet moment before or after the celebrations, we often feel something more complex. Some people do feel sadness at what has changed over time. Others feel pressure from family dynamics, and many feel a deep personal longing that they have not fully named until this year. I think I read something from place.org. Christmas can act like a mirror, if you ask me, reflecting the year that we lived. It brings forward memories of those who are no longer with us, relationships that shifted, opportunities we missed, choices we made, and choices we avoided. The psychological experience of December is a unique one because it urges us to look backwards and forwards at the same time. Isn't that ironic? Now, when we do that, it kind of measures where we have come from and where we're going. It is a time when the quiet inside us meets the loud outside world, and we are asked to reconcile them. How possible? Well, this year, there are also new voices and stories as well emerging that redefined how Christmas can be experienced. It also shares highlights on understanding and valuing in a subtle and meaningful way. For example, clinicians and new research highlight that loneliness around the holiday is not just about physical isolation, It is also kind of emotional connection. Many people are surrounded by family and still feel alone because the interactions lack warmth, depth, and authenticity. The culture itself, the culture of Christmas, in a sense, kind of magnifies the gap between closeness and connection. Now, I read something on San Antonio Express News, which I'll share that with you first. So one recent commentary published in that just today, it does emphasize the deeper meaning of Christmas, using historical and literary references to highlight themes like compassion, human connection, hope, and moral responsibility. The piece draws on stories from long ago and reminds readers that Christmas calls us to reach beyond ourselves, to think of others who are marginalized and lonely or unseen. It urges us to let, and I quote, the bright stars of our humanity. All right. So this urges us to kind of shine through, not just at Christmas, but throughout our lives. Now, in parallel with these broader themes, there are countless individual stories that bring this quiet meaning into sharper focus. Already in the news, this season, in terms of the season, some well-known figures have kind of publicly shared how their experience of Christmas will be different this year. For example, a British reality television personality has revealed that after the recent loss of a beloved pet, he plans to spend Christmas alone, not with family or in chaotic holiday gatherings. Now, he also described this choice as a way of honoring his own emotional experience and protecting his own mental well-being. His honesty has resonated with many who find the usual cheer of Christmas feels out of place amid grief, loss, and transition. Now, if you ask me, this kind of candid sharing, it does matter. It matters because it gives permission for all of us to rethink what Christmas really means. It allows us to kind of consider that celebration, reflection, peace, quiet, grief, joy, sorrow, and you name it, and also hope can all exist simultaneously. It acknowledges that Christmas is not a single emotion, but a spectrum of human experience. I also read another story on people.com. It was from the entertainment world that illustrated a different aspect of Christmas meaning. The actress and her family shared a new holiday tradition that center around thoughtful, intentional activities with their young children, creating memories that are deeply personal rather than culturally mandated. These traditions, if you ask me, they involve like quiet family time, simple, joyful activities, and focus on gratitude and togetherness. This story, while different in context, speaks to something essential. It means finding in the quality of the kind of connections that you make, not simply the quantity of celebration. Now, if you have listened to this far, I believe that you're following what I'm trying to say. But before that, make sure you check on my book, and this is particularly for non-native English speakers who are looking forward to upgrading their business English level. There is a book that is authored by me, and that is Business English Book, Level 1 and 2. Level 3 is already done. I'm just looking forward to publishing it on, and you can have that as well. Now let's move on. Now, these broader cultural narratives, it kind of intersect with individual experience in ways that kind of reveal something profound about Christmas in 2025. On one hand, if you ask me, we see the loneliness statistics the psychological insight into how the holiday amplifies emotions and the cultural push for positivity. And then again, on the other hand, we see personal stories of solitude chosen as healing, traditions reshaped with intention and reflections on compassion and human connection that kind of don't fit the usual festive script, if you know what I mean. So one would kind of say that like these different perspectives, it does that they all do show us that Christmas is kind of not a monolith, if I may say that. It's not like one story with a single meaning. It is in many stories layered on top of each other, and it is the laughter of a child seeing lights for the first time, the quiet moments of reflection by a single adult drinking tea by a window, and the shared memory of a loved one that's no longer present. The awkward lunch with family members you rarely see, the volunteer at a shelter serving meals to the homeless, and the person who simply walks outdoors and notices the winter light on a bare tree. Now, these are all Christmas experiences, and each of them holds meaning. But when we talk about meaning itself, it's not something that is given to us by tradition, by, let's say, commerce, by social expectation, or by a festive soundtrack playing in the background. If you ask me, meaning is like produced when we meet the moment with presence. It is produced when we pay attention to what is happening inside of us and around us. It is produced when we acknowledge, like, with both joy and hardship, and recognize that one does not negate the other, if you get what I mean. Research also kind of shows that loneliness and emotional strain at Christmas often arise because December kind of slows down the usual routines and forces us into kind of introspection. And what I mean by this is like we have routines that usually keep us busy during the rest of the year, and then all these ones no longer hold. So what we have been living with kind of unconsciously becomes conscious, if you know what I mean. Where our internal world does not match the external messaging of merriment and celebration, we experience psychological stress. Now, especially for those who are kind of far off or distant from their families, this is not kind of a failure, but it's a kind of awareness. So it is a moment of being awake. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, it's just a moment of trying to be awake to life rather than asleep on it. I read something on Forbes that actually kind of implied that this kind of psychological perspective also helps explain why some people feel Christmas most intensely when they are surrounded by others, yet feel most alone in the world, or when they are with crowd, they feel alone. This can happen when interactions are superficial, when people go through the motion of being together without emotional depth, without like real engagement. Meaning is not created by simply being with others. Don't forget. It is created by how we are with others. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, what does it look like to find meaning in life's quiet moments this Christmas 2025? If I am not surrounded by family, what does this really mean? Or if I'm exhausted, what does it mean? If I feel lonely, what does it mean? If I am grieving, what does it mean? If I'm overwhelmed, what does it mean? The good news, if you ask me, is There is no single prescription. Meaning is not a fixed destination. It is rather a process of engagement with present moment. Well, let's explore some of the ways people around the world are finding that kind of meaning in 2025. For some, meaning comes through honest reflections. For example, now many individuals online are kind of talking about the experience of living alone at Christmas, especially for those living abroad or for those in the diaspora. Some experience sorrow, others express relief, others kind of dance between complex emotions. Now, I read something on Reddit. So one Reddit user kind of described living alone this Christmas and embracing it as a space of peace and choice, celebrating personal comfort and peace without the social pressure of large gathering. Another one that I read kind of shared a weight on the silence, the strange echo of lights and decoration when there is no one else to share it with, and the longing that arises when everything eternal seems to say joy, but internally it does experience kind of quietness. Now, these stories may differ, okay? These stories I read may differ, but then they share a common thread, which is they are honest reflections on lived experiences, like I said earlier on. So I kind of like, after reading that, I kind of asked myself that, does this honesty itself form a meaning? And the answer to me is yes. This honesty itself is a form of meaning. It is not pretending everything is perfect. It is acknowledging what is actually present. It is saying, I see this moment as it is, and I will meet it with kind of clarity rather than denial. This actually kind of personally resonates with me. But hey, for others, meaning appears in what they offer to others. Around the world, volunteers and community groups spend parts of the season focusing on kindness, companionship, and support. Holiday campaigns emphasize connection rather than consumption. Films, stories, and community events center on kind of bringing people together in simple ways, like through kind of shared meals, having nice conversations, small gestures of care, you name it. But these actions may be invisible in the grand narrative of a holiday spectacle, but for those who experience them, they can be transformative, if you ask me. So it's kind of a deeper lesson here about the word meaning. It grows when attention moves outward from self to others. Okay. Now, when we notice someone who is alone and invited them over for a simple walk or a chat, when we stop to speak to a neighbor who seems quiet, when we think of those who will not experience Christmas in a conventional way this year, children in hospitals, people in shelters, elders who cannot travel, those in broken relationships, and such. We kind of send them a message of thoughtfulness, a greeting card, a simple act of food or company. And these are not grand gestures. They are small, simple, quiet moments of connection. Yet they really carry far more meaning than 1,000 decorated aisles of perfect photographs. If you ask me about the word meaning can also be found in personal rituals. Yeah, personal rituals as well. Some people choose to show down their mornings to sit with a warm drink and tuning to their own thoughts before the noise of the day begins. Others also choose to keep a journal, noting what they are grateful for and what they have learned this year. Some go for walks in nature, paying attention to light falling on frost, to the shape of bare trees against winter sky, to the quiet steps of your own breath. Now, I come from Ghana, and so taking the weather out, some people spend time with family and friends outside. It could be in a church, but they actually have really fun times having parties. Things that, in fact, in December 2025, they call dirty December. We're talking about DETTY, December. These are, if you ask me, these are not typical markers of Christmas, to be honest. However, they're still profound. They create space for presence, which is kind of the foundation of meaning. Now, I read something also on a party, Alibaba party, right? Now, that psychologists studying holiday loneliness note that, and so engaging in kind of like intentional quiet activities like journaling, meditation, reflective walks, or mindful breathing, it can foster self-compassion and emotional regulation. This approach kind of changes how we relate to the moment rather than trying to control what the moment should be. It replaces forced cheer with authenticity, and in authenticity, we find resonance. So I read something also on the agi.org, which kind of got me thinking. It's like, okay, so another layer of meaning here, what I deduced from that is that this season arises with like when people embrace tradition with intention rather than obligation. Simple family traditions can be reframed not as a duty, but as opportunities for connection and memory. For example, many families talk about decorating a tree not simply as a task, but as a time of recalling or a time to recall stories, to laugh together, to honor ancestors whose ornaments hang on branches like delicate memories. A feature from a university publication this year, I think this year 2025, it did highlight on how students and family talk about holiday decor as a reflection of personal and cultural identity. Each ornament and heirloom of history and humanity shared across generations. When traditions are kind of treated as stories rather than requirements, they become meaningful in new ways, if you ask me. They connect us to the past without kind of anchoring us in it. And also, it kind of connects us to one another without trapping us in expectation. Then again, there is also another kind of meaning of the word meaning. Now, this is my own definition here. So it's kind of like it appears when we say meaning. Meaning also appears when we recognize that emotional complexity is also part of life. Yeah, it is. Now, Christmas does not have to be pureful joy in order to be meaningful. It can also be bittersweet. It can be thoughtful, like it can be reflective, and it can also be quite hopeful. For example, like, so for this year, 2025, my aim was to, I do have a slim body, I must say. So one of my aims was to kind of put a little bit, just a little bit of weight, because like I'm tall, and according to my dietitian, I should be of a certain weight to fit my height. And so naturally, I do not have appetite to eat. And so I was just hoping, I think I did post that on my Facebook. That was around same month last year. that I'm making way for like appetite to have a rinse-free space for my appetite. Well, I'm not sure I did have that weight that I was looking for. I'm still the same. Well, I did add just a tiny bit, maybe just about maybe 1 or 2 pounds, maybe. But all I'm trying to say that meaning can also be quite like being like quietly hopeful. That's what I'm trying to say. And that can even be hard, but it's also still meaning. It adds that up. Now, acknowledging the full range of experience, such as joy, sorrow, longing, peace, disappointment, it kind of makes Christmas more authentic, if you ask me. And authenticity gives us connections with ourselves and others. When we stop striving to meet eternal, or no, no, I wouldn't say eternal, like perhaps when we stop striving to meet rather external expectations, like the perfect dinner, the smiling photos, the Instagram worthy moments, and instead shift our attention to the substance of experience, then like having honest conversations, thoughtful presence, and small gestures of kindness, like something profound happens. To be honest, I'm looking forward to one of these gatherings and in the next 48 hours with my friends around me. I can't wait for that. It's kind of a routine that we normally have each year, but I call it a substance of experience. Now, when we do that, we tend to begin to recognize that the quiet moments we once overlooked are not empty spaces. They are the spaces where our hearts are open, where we absorb meaning, where we wrestle with truth, and where we grow. This year, many writers and thinkers are encouraging exactly that shift, and I'm so happy about that. They remind us that Christmas was actually never originally about perfect celebration, but about presence, sacrifice, compassion, and connection. They remind us that even the traditional narratives embedded in themes of humility and shared humanity, right? And then they also invite us to let Christmas's deeper lessons extend beyond December into January, February, and the year ahead. In the end, finding meaning in life, or I would say finding meaning in life's quiet moments, this Christmas 2025 actually means allowing ourselves to meet the moment honestly. It means dropping the pretense of perfection, acknowledging what we feel, whether that is joy, whether it's loneliness, whether it's gratitude or exhaustion, they're all part. And then deciding how to respond with presence rather than resistance. It also means holding space for others as well as ourselves. It means recognizing that meaning is not given by spectacular events or social approval, but it's discovered in the gentle engagement with life's quiet, subtle, even unremarked moments. I'm so happy we're having this conversation. And I'm glad you stayed with me till the end. So in the end, remember, as you move through these final weeks of December, invite yourself into this quiet space rather than avoiding them. Sit with your thoughts. Notice the warmth of a cup in your hand. Reflect on the memories that are stirring beneath the surface. Reach out with kindness to someone who may need it. Listen and do listen to others and to the quieter part of yourself. In doing so, you will find that meaning does not hide in the loudest moments, but rather in the spaces where presence meets experience and where silence reveals the truth. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, brought to you by Juliet from Invisible M. Now, if you found value in exploring the quiet forces that shape our lives and reflecting on personal growth, you might enjoy taking your skills even further. I've created a Business English for Non-Natives, Levels 1 and 2, available now on Amazon Kindle with Level 3 coming soon. These courses are designed to help you communicate confidently in professional settings, understand real business scenarios, and improve your English step by step. All levels will also be available on Apple Books, so you can learn wherever you are. Now explore the courses and start building your skills today. You're not just learning English, you're gaining the tools to connect, present, and succeed in the business world. Bye-bye for now.